Dear friends, warm and loving greetings to all of you, and welcome to Session 5 of the ISSE-SE Education in Human Values Program, Online Course 1, Module 2. My name is Raksha Mahtani. I live in Palma de Mallorca, Spain, and I am a member of the coordinating committee of this beautiful and inspiring event. I will be your facilitator for today's session, and I am very much looking forward to sharing the next couple of hours together. As you know, in our two previous sessions, we had the opportunity to listen to our dear Vasiliki, who spoke to us about the teacher as an exemplar of human values. And then we also heard our dear Suzanne, who helped us to deepen our understanding on the topic of the 5 Ds: dedication, devotion, discipline, discrimination, and determination. Today, session 5 will be dedicated to the triple partnership, in which we will see how both the education a child receives at home as well as the education a child receives at school, together indeed are the two main pillars and foundation of their character building process. Before introducing you to our first speaker today, I would just like to remind all participants to keep the microphones muted and cameras turned off during the presentation to ensure a smooth ongoing program. We will also have time for a short question and answer session at the end, as always, after the presentation. So please take note of your questions on a piece of paper, and then you can post them in the chat box right after the presentation. Having said that, it is now my absolute honor to introduce you to our first speaker of today. Good morning, dear Esthercris.
Good morning, dear Raksha.
So lovely to see you. So I'm just going to share a few words about our dear Esthercris, so that even though we see you very often in our question and answer sessions, it's nice to remind ourselves about some important aspects in her educational and professional life too. So Esther Cristina Puentes was born in Colombia and deeply inspired by the profound teachings of her spiritual master, Satya Sai, and supported by the American pragmatism of her studies, she has benefited from a mixture of cultures, skills, and knowledge. She studied psychology at the Universidad Católica de Colombia and obtained a diploma in business management at the Universidad de los Andes in Bogotá. She graduated as a Vedic Master of the Chopra Center University in San Diego, California, and is an Executives Mentor and Certified Coach of the International Coach Federation in the USA. Esthercris has more than 30 years of experience as a trainer of executives and their teams with clients of multinational companies. She's an expert in collective intelligence, and she is the co-author of the book entitled Co-Development to Grow Thanks to Collectivity, that was published in Spanish and French. Human values and spirituality have inspired her work with managers throughout her professional career. Additionally, Esthercris is one of the founding members of the Institute of Satya-Sai Education of Human Values in Colombia that emerged in 1989. And she has had the privilege of training teachers in the ISSE-SE program in Colombia and has given lectures on fundamental value topics in several Latin American countries during congresses and public conferences. She is now part of the coordinating team of the first online course in English of the Institute of Satyasai Education here in South Europe, and she is a member of our institute too. Esthercris has worked with children and as a human values teacher in schools that have adopted the program. And she has also given a number of workshops for parents there and also at the Satyasai School in Funza, Colombia. Her role as a mother and grandmother has transformed her, and she believes that this has been a real gift for her life, offering her a permanent opportunity to discern and practice all the aspects of SSEHV that she shares with other children, adults, and teachers. Esthercris, we are now delighted to hear you and learn about your practical knowledge based on your understanding and experiences on the triple partnership. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Raksha. It is my pleasure to be today with all of you. And I will share my screen now. Thank you very much for the introduction you made. And it's really my pleasure to have the honor to present this very important topic of the triple partnership. This triangle made up from the children, their parents, and their teachers. As you mentioned, dear Raksha, we focused on the first part of this triangle during the presentations made by our dear Vasiliki and by you, when you spoke about how important it is to be an exemplary teacher and also how to create an atmosphere and an environment of love is essential for our kids to grow very, very well. So now we will focus on these two topics: the relationship between the children and their parents, and the relationship between the teachers and the parents too. So this is the overview of the whole presentation of today, and the first part will be on the first part also. As parents, we must work on ourselves, why it is so important to do that. And on the second part, we will see how we can use those 5 human values as a guide to let us help our kids and children to let them fly. And you will notice that during the presentation, all the topics that we mentioned related to parents also apply to teachers, because parents remain educators 24 hours a day. To begin, let us start as how we approach to kids in this program. Just remember that children are generally good by nature and willing to do their duty and shine well in studies. One cause of their waywardness and occasional indiscipline lies with elders who set poor examples of truth and self-control. And here once again we see that word of example. And this is very important because during the upbringing, the inherent patterns emerge. And sometimes, if we are not aware of those patterns, that maybe some of them are not very good, we can not be good examples for our kids. So it is very important only to take into account which good patterns we have to repeat. And this is why Satyasai says it is essential that parents pay close attention to their own behavior and to work on constantly improving themselves. Because Parents play a vital role in providing an environment conducive to the flourishing of the right values. And here again, we will listen that special word of example. They are the sculptures of the child's personality and almost always the first examples for the children to follow. The children are a reflection of their parents. And this program is always focusing on the kids and other children because during the first years of a human being from 0 to 5 years we are like sponges, so we have to begin very early to work with the kids so they can grow appropriately. You can help a bush to grow straight, but once it becomes a tree, its growth can no longer be directed. Children should be taught to live in the worldly life like lotuses that are in the water but are not affected by it. And today we can see that there are many factors that can affect us and of course our kids. For instance, from 2019 to 2020, 243 million women were victims of sexual or physical violence. This, of course, affects families and kids. Coronavirus disease increased intrafamilial violence, especially against women, according to the World Health Organization. And before the pandemic, 8.5 of the kids had experienced depression and 11.6% anxiety. This is huge, but look at these numbers. During the pandemic, 25.2% experimented depression and 20.5% anxiety. How can we prevent our kids to be affected for this surrounding? So, as you can see, for depression and anxiety, they dramatically increase in children. This was a research recently made by the University of Minnesota, the CIDRAP, Center of Infectious Disease Research and Policy, in August of this year. But how can we protect them? How can we guide them and let them fly? Well, we have in our hands the treasure of those 5 human values. I think that using them, we really can help a lot the correct development of a good character of the children. So let's start by the value of truth. The value of truth means that you can establish an inner connection that is essential for human beings, and then a connection with higher self. During the first international conference for youth in India, Satya Sai says that we had to have at home a holy place, a place where we can go and be silent and meditate in each home. This is my own place. And why is this so important? It is very important because when you are giving example to your kids and you meditate there or you are praying there, they will do so. Because if you read, they will read. If you pray, they will pray. If you meditate, they will also spontaneously go and meditate. So the value of truth is very important because this is a value that helps you to enter in contact with your true identity. It is how we can find the real answer to who we are. And we can help during the day also through this beautiful technique. Little affirmations has great effects. I love affirmations, and here are some of the ones I use at home. But my favorite one is this one. My little grandson Benjamin is always singing this because I took that from a song, and he's going and coming from in his house, like just singing like I am happy, I am good, I am happy, I am good. And imagine how it's nice to see a little boy just remember himself that he is happy and he is good, because this is his essence. But let's go now to the value of love. The value of love sets the foundation for a good relationship. If you achieve to establish this kind of relationship with your kids, you really will have the opportunity of having deep and important conversations during the whole life. They will come to you when they will need help. If not, this will not be possible. They will be afraid of you, or maybe they will not recognize you as a person to whom they can go when they need something. So to establish this relationship, I found from my experience that there are three things that are very important. The first one is to have an eye contact, a beautiful and deep eye contact, a loving one. Even when you are reprimanding them, you have to look at them with love, because you are telling them something that is important. So this is um, like a must for a good relationship. But sometimes I had committed some mistakes, and one of them is this: that one day I was working in my computer, and one of my daughters came to ask me permission to go to the house of one of her friends. And she asked me, Mommy, can I go to Kata's home tonight and rest there until tomorrow? Since we knew the family and the girl, I said, yes, dear, you can go. But I continued to work in my computer, and she was there behind me and always asked me, Mom, can I have your permission to go to Kata's home and rest there until tomorrow? And I repeated, yes, dear, you can go. And I just told you that. And I continued to work. She was there behind me, and she finally told me, Mom, you didn't give me the permission yet. And I said, yes, dear, I just told you, you can go to Kata's home and rest there. I will pick you up tomorrow. And she told me, no, Mom, you didn't give me the permission yet because you didn't look at my eyes. And I say, oh my God, sorry, dear, you are absolutely right. So I looked at her and said, dear, you can go to Kata's home and I will pick you up tomorrow morning. She said, okay, Mom, thank you. And she went out. So please remember that the devices can distract us, the computer and the phone and things like that. Eye contact is fundamental. And the second one is the physical contact. There are research that's shown us that a baby without a caring and loving physical contact cannot survive. And it is so important, especially during the first years of the boys and the girls, to have this physical contact from their parents, a loving physical contact. The third one is to be full present. When you are speaking to them, imagine that there is nothing more important in the whole world than listening to that little person talking to you. Here, Benjamin was talking to me. This was the grandparents' day at his school, and I was absolutely trying to understand his baby language, and I realized that he was introducing me his friends, just because I was so connected to him, because he couldn't speak at the time. It is very important to be fully present. When you have a good eye contact, a physical contact, a good one, lovely one, and you are full present, you can be ready to listen, to understand. And as a Kierkegaard says, in order to help another effectively, I must understand what he understands. If I do not know that, my greater understanding will be of no help to him. Instruction begins when you put yourself in his place. And this is very important. And there is a lovely way to establish the fundamental relationship between your children and you. I love this technique. Remember that the value of love is an energy. So this technique of singing inspirational songs together helps family to connect, and you can create an atmosphere and an environment of love through music. But this is not enough. Parents today tend to give their children too much affection, but that affection is not enough. There should also be control over the children. There must be both love and law. Only when love and control are present is love beneficial. So, this is the moment to talk about the value of right conduct. Because this is the art of creating good habits. If you create a good habit like self-help skills, like take a shower by ourselves or get dressed, or maybe a social habit like saying goodbye when we are going out of the house or things like that, maybe ethical skills, whatever, you are creating habits, and habits enable kids to understand and know how. Once they know the steps, the procedures, to how to do something, they will increase their self-esteem, their self-confidence, and the sense of safety will grow without inside them. This will help in one sense, and the most important from my point of view is that they will become autonomous. It means the kids will develop the possibility of being aware of their own conscience without having the need of having an adult telling them what to do or not. They will be self-aware, and they will be able to behave in the right way. So this is very important. But on the other hand, as parents, we must set limits, rules, discipline, and order. If not, there will be chaos in the family and also in their lives. For that, we have to be coherent. Our mind, our heart, and our actions must to be aligned. And we also have to be aligned between mother and father. In this way, we will set an example and not confuse our kids with different behaviors. Parents have the right to warn and the duty to correct their children. Why should they be afraid to do so? To practice the value of right conduct in the daily life, we can also include our children in activities that are oriented to human values and service. This is an example of an activity from the Jewish Community Center in San Diego, California, that I love a lot. Those are my nephews, and the activity is called mini menches. A mensch for them, for that Yiddish community, means a person of honor, someone that can be emulated because it's a person of good character. So through this activity of service, they are trying to develop those good qualities to make them also menches. So they are now mini menches. In this case, they were preparing bags with clothes and also with food for homeless people in San Diego. All the parents are coming together with the kids, then they are arranging the bags, and then the parents and the kids go to the streets and to the get in touch with the homeless people and gave them the bags. This is very important because the whole community is involved in that, parents and kids. Well, we can also develop that right conduct through this beautiful technique, and it is reading inspirational stories, because when we read stories, kids understand how can we overcome difficulties, how can we solve problems, how can we practice our values. And this is very interesting to see how they are involved in the way we are talking to them, the stories that they love. The value of non-violence is also very helpful to us because this is the practice of empathy and compassion. Every conflict presents you with a choice. You can choose to view conflict as an opportunity to blame and punish, or as an opportunity to teach. This was a quotation I took from the book Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline, wrote by Dr. Bailey, that is a psychologist, teacher, and an award-winning author. And in that book, she's remembering us how it is important to understand what is happening with the kids and with the children. Instead of shouting, because the louder you shout, the less you will be heard. You can be empathetic and trying to understand what are these difficult moments they are living, and try to content them, to calm them. And this is a way of practicing non-violence. If you approach your kids like that, they will not be so affected by the environment. But take time to share activities. It's very important because in nonviolence, kids learn how to deal one with other, how to live in community. Here, Isaac is giving rules for a game to the family. And here, this family is cooking together. They are learning how to take turns, how to help the other, how to have a fun moment together. Or they are living an experience of human values in family. And the value of peace for me is the mastering of emotional intelligence. When we deal with that emotionality, those feelings that sometimes are difficult to deal with, we can be able to face life in a different way. This is a story of Danny, my nephew. One day her mom was picking him up at the school, and they were in the highway when all of a sudden he said, "Mommy, I don't know what is happening to me. I don't know why I'm feeling I need to be alone. I don't know what is happening to me." So she said, "You mean that you really want to be alone now? But I'm driving, dear." "Yes, Mom, I need to be alone." So she stopped the car when she could, and she asked, "You want me to stay here in front of the car, or what do you need?" And he said, "Please, Mom, go out. I need to be alone." She went out of the car and she realizes that the kid was crying. She was so concerned, but absolutely there waiting for him to do something else. At some minutes after that, he called her, and he said that she can come. So she went to the car and she asked, "Well, dear, what happened?" And he says, "Mom, now I know what I feel. I was sad. I was sad." "Oh dear, I know you are sad. Sometimes we can be sad. And how do you feel now?" And he says, "Now I feel relieved." So it was so important because he was just a little kid of 3 years old, and he was able to say that he named that emotions. He was sad, and then he was relieved. But it was because the mother understood that he needs to be alone, and she gave him the space to be alone. And then she didn't refuse the feelings, but she just accepted that he was sad. It was very important for me. That was an extremely special experience of inner inquiry. And the technique that you can use also to develop that self-control is to practice silent sitting and light meditation, or even sometimes even to breathe it is very important to get into self-control again. So as you see, those 5 human values are very important for us to help them to fly. But we have to use them, as Susan reminds us, with discipline, with dedication, with determination, with discrimination, in order to help them to transform that vocation into an action. I mean, devotion. This is very important to do that. Most parents has this day want their children to become great in various ways, in scholarship, wealth, and position. This is totally misconceived. They should really want their children to be good. Greatness signifies quantity, goodness is an index of quality. So, parents and teachers must work together to develop a good character in children. They cannot do that alone. No, so we are going to the second part of this presentation to see how this parents relationship can be developed. The first thing we will see is how those roles are supportive and complementary, and then we will go through some strategies that help us in this sense. Here is a photograph from a workshop in the Prema Satya Sai School, Complementary School in Barrio Blanquito in Colombia. Here we see the academic director, the principal, the teachers, and the parents all together working for making a good character for the children. The teacher must watch over every word and gesture, every action and reaction, and not violate these virtues, because the teacher is for the students the ideal, the example, the person to whom the parents have entrusted them. Women perform this responsibility better than men. Children can be shaped more easily by gentleness and softness than maternal affection implies, than by parental counsel and admonition. So here we can see that when at home we have to be very strict and maybe make parental counsel and admonition. Maybe if we speak with the teachers at school, they can do something to balance in a warm and soft way. We can do that in both sides. Go to some strategies. One of the strategies is to do or give workshops by teachers for parents and family. Here we see the teachers waiting for the parents, and then they are all coming together, and even as we see in that last photography, the kids are there. The children go to the workshops too. So the whole community is working for them, for the children. Here there are service activities, as the example of Satya Sai School of Bahia de Caracas during the earthquake in 2016, where the school opened the doors for the persons that were homeless because their homes were absolutely destroyed. They also invited sometimes people to decorate the walls of the school, and the parents came, and the school was so beautiful that the whole community was inspired to do so. Here we can also think about giving homework or tasks that include the family. For example, in this occasion, a leaf was given to each of the families, and the kids and the parents decorated that, and then they went to the school, and with the teachers and the kids, they all together made a big turkey with all the things they put it in the leaves, just remembering how they can be thankful for many things. It was a gratitude activity for Thanksgiving Day. Or you maybe can invite the children to go home and also make a prayer for thanking food before starting to eat. In one occasion, one of the parents in the Satya Sai School of Funza went to the school to ask the teachers, what is it all about? Because my kid doesn't want to begin to eat before having a prayer. What is that? And the teachers could explain him what it was all about, and he was so happy to know that and was integrated in the activity too. Another strategy is to do a parade. This is an example of one of the parades that the FUNSA School, Satya Sai School of Bogota, of Colombia, made in 2017. All the children were preparing, for example, activities of recycling things or painting banners or preparing songs or dances for doing the parade. And at the moment of the parade, everybody was there. The teachers, even the principal that is here in this photo, all the kids, the parents, and they went through the whole village of Funza, and it was very inspiring for the whole community. Everybody was coming together. When parents and teachers are both involved in a value-based development process, they can transmit high ideals to children. And here I have a last one. This is a strategy I love a lot. We trained all the teachers of this school, El Portal, that is a foundation for children of prisoners in Bogota. And those teachers made a meditation on the light before starting each class. Well, those kids had difficult partners at their homes. They saw so many bad behaviors. They had very difficult families. So all the teachers were teaching to them was so important. One day, one of the kids put a tag on the chair of other of the mates in the classroom. And this boy was so furious that during the recess he took the tag and wanted to take revenge. So he was running after this one little kid, and the third one went running after them. And he was shouting out, "Oh, please, don't hurt him. Bring out the light of your heart. Bring out the light of your heart." They start to running and running and running, and all the teachers were there because those kind of things usually ended in horrible fights. But this time, all of a sudden, the kids stopped, and the one that was running after the one that has the tag in his hand says, "Please, don't hurt him. Bring out the light of your heart." This boy down his hand. He looked at his friend and they both hugged. When the teachers told us about that story, it really touches me because they were really able to transform the behavior. It was the first time. It doesn't end in a big fight. They were able to bring out the light of their hearts. They really knew what was it all about. It's, "I am in the light is in me, I am the light." So they were really transforming the life, the patterns, the old behaviors that weren't good. And they were able to live like a lotus, not affected by the mud, even by the water in which they live. So now, this triangle is complete. But this is like a stool. Children, parents, and teachers must be there because if one of them is absent, the stool will be unstable. Now we have going through the importance of establishing a strong relationship between children and teachers, and also between children and parents. But we have to take into account that this relationship of teachers and parents makes the foundation of this special and strong and powerful triangle. Because parents and teachers are a model to learn from and look up to at all times. Their capability to cooperate is thus essential for the child's development. Well, this is now time for questions and answers. Thank you.
Dear Esthercris, thank you so much for such an inspiring presentation. It was lovely to hear all your insights. And I'm sure that just as I enjoyed all the participants, we really treasured, especially those personal stories, anecdotes, and practical examples that you shared as well. And it was so beautiful to see how you connected the topic to the 5 human values and also provided us with strategies and examples of what one can do in our own lives to help strengthen this relationship with children, whether as parents or as teachers, and that mutual cooperation between these 2 pillars that you spoke about so beautifully. So thank you very much, dear Esthercris. And as we said at the beginning, we will have a short time now for questions and answers. So we invite you all, once again, as we said, to post your questions, if you have any, in the chat box so that we can ask our dear Esthercris to answer too. Maybe while some of the questions come through, I actually had a question I wanted to ask you, Esthercris, and it has to do with something you spoke about when you spoke about the importance of love and law, love and discipline, as Satyasai also says. And I'd like to ask you why you think parents and teachers today are often hesitant and even sometimes even afraid to put limits when needed. Why do you think this happens to parents and teachers, dear Esthercris?
That's a very good question, dear Raksha, because maybe we think sometimes that we are going to hurt the kids, that they will be even traumatized if we correct them. But I remember a story that Satyasai told us once, and it was about a woman that was in a marketplace with her children, her little kid. And the kid took a banana that she hasn't paid. And instead of correcting the kid, she peeled the banana and fed it to them, so to him. So they went and the kid grew and he developed the vice of stealing things. And they went once and again to that market and steal things. And even when they was older, he committed crime. He killed a man because he wanted to steal something from him. So he was taken by the police and he was in prison, and he was condemned to death. And his last wish was to have her mom at the prison. So she went there, and when she arrived, he said, "I am here because of you." And she said, "Because of me? I have done nothing." And he says, "If you had corrected me when I tried to steal that banana, I wouldn't have to pass for all of this." So we have to correct our kids. This is our duty. We have to be strong. Love is very important, and this is the base for constructing, like I said, a good relationship. But this is not enough. We have to be very, very clear in the limits and correct our kids to do the right things.
Thank you very much, dear Esthercris. That's a very beautiful answer. And yes, true. Once we start correcting from the very beginning, we realize that our children, they indeed appreciate that. So thank you very much. I see that another question has come in through the chat box. And the question says, roles in a family are today very often confused and not recognized well. How could you explain the role of a parent or a child?
This is very true. Sometimes roles are very confused today, but this is very important to be clear in what is the role of each of one in the family. As parents, we are parents. We are not friends. We are parents. Even if we are kind and serene with them and whatever, but you really have to maintain your role of being a parent. So you have to play that role in order to show the kid that you are really playing that in the way you must do. And when we were preparing this session, talking with Verisha, she told me something that is very important in this respect, because she told me that once she has to say to a kid, you are a children. Children don't behave like this. I am your mother, or I am your teacher. So this is not the right way of behaving. So in that way, you are not only giving the example of playing your role in an adequate way, but you are also telling them what is expecting from them. You remember during the presentation I spoke about the know-how? You are remembering that know-how to them. That's very important.
Wonderful, Esthercris. It's true. Thank you very much for enlightening us with these very special answers too. And we have another question that has come to us in the chat box, and it says, how do you encourage parents who are not willing to give up their stressed working time to involve themselves into the development of the children? It's something we see very often in society right now, so it's a very
Yes.
it's a very good question for nowadays, indeed.
Yes. I think that maybe we have to go to the moment in which we decide to be parent. If we have the opportunity really to decide it in a very conscious way, we can remember that we have a responsibility that never ends. Once we start to be parents, we will never end that role, because first of all we are parents, and then we have other roles in our lives. For me, it was important. In that case, I can tell you that I had lots of work. I worked a lot with a multinational company, and I wanted to make an international career. But when my two daughters were born, I decided to change it and to dedicate my life to them. I mean, I didn't stop to work, because I always worked a lot and I love that. I love my work. But I decided to quit the organization and to be independent. So in that way, in my case, I reached to have this balance between the time I dedicated to my daughters and to my work. I think that we have to decide to use that D of discrimination. What is more important in that moment? What do those kids really need? And what is the most important role for me in that moment? And for me, it was simple. The most important role was to be a mother more than to be a worker or a successful executive. I think that this is something that we have to ask to ourselves.
Thank you very much, Esthercris. And like you said, there are moments in life one has to really set the priorities, right?
Yes.
And even using, like you said, also this virtue of fundamental discrimination too. We have another question in the chat box that says, how do digital devices affect family roles and how do they interfere with the transmission of values from parents to children nowadays? How can we prevent the addiction to these devices?
Well, I think that those devices are really creating a great problem in our society, because through television or the social media, we are receiving lots of information that is not the more adequate for kids. So I think that this is something I practice in my own house too. Instead of fighting against those devices, I developed a lot of activities that were very interesting for my daughters. So they were making some sports. They were dancing ballet, or they were doing lots of things that were very, very interesting to them. So they really haven't time to go to the television or to the devices, because they had their minds in another thing. So instead of thinking about that, it's more to be aware that if we are tired and we give the children an iPad to play because I'm tired, well, I'm promoting that addiction. So I have to once again have the discipline and the determination of choosing the good things for them. And I think that at the moment, well, my two daughters has now 33 and 37 years, and they didn't like to see much television or things like that. But this is only because they learned to have a fun time in family and with other activities. I think this is the best thing we can do. Share time with them.
Great advice, dear Esthercris, because indeed, if we show them how to use their time more constructively and something that even is attractive for them, somehow they want to put their time in these things too, these shared activities, like you say. So thank you for that too. And I think we have time for one more question that we have in the chat box. And it says, are the roles of the mother and the father exactly the same? Or should there be any difference?
I think that they are very different, and they also have common parts. The difference is that you are modeling a feminine energy through the role of a mother. The tenderness, the calm, the patience, the warmth comes from the mother, and maybe the discipline and the strong way of behaving and the strong way of being in front of some difficulties sometimes come from the father. But I think that both have to take into account that they have the role of being models and exemplars towards their kids. So I think that they need both examples, because both are not only necessary but really important and indispensable to grow in a balance. I think that I see that in that way. Another thing that I think is very important is that spirituality comes through the mothers at home first. So all these activities of our spiritual communities uh, are very often taught by the mothers, and this is very important. And how to do a sport or something like discipline in another way can come through the father. So even if sometimes they can change a little bit some of these roles, they really have different aspects. The feminine and the masculine energy comes from one another of them, and the kids need that.
Thank you very much, Esthercris, for sharing your thoughts on this too. And I think we actually have time for a final question too, because well, now we have two questions that are still there. I would just like to remind participants that if by any chance we do not have time for all the questions, we will use our email as well to respond to any unanswered questions. And this is actually related to what we had just been talking about, Esthercris. And the question says, what happens if one parent is missing? Is there a way to compensate in education and the upbringing of the child?
On one side, I think that missing one of the parents is a pity. Anyway, you can have one of the parents in front of the family and be able to give you the example of being a kid or a child of good character, even when one of them is not there anymore. I think that sometimes there are other adults that can play that role. Grandparents can help, or even other persons of the community. And sometimes even the teachers also can help in playing that role of being elders, exemplar elders to the kids. So, well, this happens, and in those days with the divorces and with deaths and all the things that we have to face with life, we can have those difficulties to face, but it is important to know that we can raise a kid with our love, and being able to do that with asking for help to the other elders that are close to us.
Thank you once again, dear Esthercris. It was very nice to hear all your insights on all these questions. And I think what we're going to do now is we will take a short break. We will take a break of 7 minutes, so we will be able to listen to 2 beautiful songs, and we will come back after the break, after 7 minutes, to continue with our interactive workshop. So thank you once again, dear Esthercris. It was very delightful to hear you, and we look forward to seeing everyone once again in 7 minutes. Thank you.